The most inspiring stories from today's leaders in health and fitness. Join Rose in today's show. Welcome to the Paleo Diet Magazine Show with your host, Rose.
At 8 years old, Kelly Schmidt learned the power of nutrition when diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Living the silver lining of having a chronic autoimmune disease, Kelly shares her passion of nutrition in making the most of her health and her clients. In 2012, after many years of dreaming and planning, Kelly opened her private practice, Paleo Infused Nutrition, based in Chicago. Kelly Schmidt, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We are delighted to have you. Let's get started. Kelly, tell me about the moment you realized you wanted to change your life.
Sure. And I couldn't say if it was a moment. It's always been a journey, I would say. And that being, of course, a dietitian, it's always been a top interest. But also I've had diabetes since I was 7 years old. So managing blood sugar, of course, was top of mind. But I would say my turning point was about 2008 when I went to a conference in Miami, Florida, and the title of the conference was along the lines of Food is Medicine. And at that meeting, all the presentations were really focused on eating real food and avoiding things that were, noted as healthy, such as whole grains. And it opened my mind to food politics and of course, what makes most sense for our biology.
Okay, now you said food is medicine. Can you give us some more information about that?
Yeah, and it's, I guess, along the quote of Hippocrates of let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, and really using food to control our health or optimize our health, and then specifically with me, to best manage my blood sugars. Because I guess the tipping point at this time, I'll include a little more detail in this story. I was in between jobs, and my friend was like, hey, come to this conference, and I honestly couldn't afford it. So I contacted the conference and asked if I could be a volunteer of some form to get a discounted rate, which it blows my mind. I actually made that move because it's not very natural of me, but so I did, and they let me be the person that helped presenters know when their time was up, and with that, I got to know all the presenters. And as a dietitian, and having diabetes, my labs were pretty mediocre, and I was like, if I'm an expert in this field, I have a chronic condition for over a decade, I should know what is good and what works and so forth. Mm-hmm. So I was really scratching my head at the time about how to manage my diabetes, and with getting to know the presenters, I asked them some specific one-on-one questions, and they were all like, bottom line, take gluten out of your diet. Mm-hmm. And I thought, no way, that's so paralyzing. And I thought, I'm already watching sugar and carbohydrates. Gluten just seems way too much, but I honestly had nothing to lose. So I returned back to Chicago and stripped it out of my diet, and it had never felt better.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I started removing gluten from my diet, it's amazing how my whole body just felt. I mean, my sinuses cleared up. I had more energy. I didn't realize that gluten was making me so sluggish.
Yeah.
I had more energy. And just overall, it was beneficial to my body.
Yeah, I agree. And for the first time in my life, so I was 24 or so, 23, 24, and I had been diabetic since I was 7, 8, right on my birthday. Yeah. And it was the first time in my life I wasn't chasing blood sugars. I could more so predict them. Yes. And it was a life changer because that affected my sleep, my exercise, my overall work performance, because I was in public relations at the time, so writing a lot of press releases and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I was a new person. I was like, wow, if I gave up gluten a long time ago, I wonder what my grades would have been in college. Nothing to do with that. But I was like, I was really like, I had a lot of weight on my shoulders that was unnecessary, and really it was just gluten challenging everything in my body.
Yes. I wondered the same thing. When I was in college, if I had given up gluten, would I have been able to process the information that the professors were giving to me, Yeah. I was just like overwhelmed with everything. And I'm like, wow, if I only knew this like 10, 15 years ago, what a fantastic mind I would have had, So, yeah.
I agree. So that conference was the tipping point of my journey, I guess, into the paleosphere. But I didn't come into this area knowing it was paleo. So I stripped gluten from my diet at first, and then really started to pay attention to how food made me feel, and then how it affected my blood sugar and my insulin sensitivity. And from there, I started stripping back on most grains in general. When I was in the transition period of gluten-free, I kept like gluten-free oatmeal and rice and so forth. But then I started stripping out all the grains. And then next step, I started looking at how beans made me feel. And I started taking those out of my diet, because when I would take the, estimated insulin, it didn't work the same with the amount of carbohydrates of beans and legumes versus the amount of carbohydrates of, say, sweet potato or fruit. Sweet and potato fruit, I could take insulin and be a clean blood sugar control, where the other things, it just got a little sticky, I guess is the word I'll use. And then from there, of course, I started paying attention to the type of fats and cleaning up the fats. And then last to go was dairy. But during this long journey, which was over, maybe a year or two, someone approached me. They said, "Hey, you're doing that paleo thing." And I was like, "What is that?" And that's when I picked up Mark Sisson's book, The Primal Blueprint, and was like, wow, this really makes sense, and I'm not the only one who's noticing.
Right. It makes a lot of sense, yeah. And you hit yourself in the head and you say, why didn't I think of this earlier, And it's so simple. Just to follow the paleo is so simple. I mean, it's
absolutely. And then, one caveat, if that's the right word, I'm a little tired from my newborn, but so many of my medical professions or my medical team, and even just with this last pregnancy, they would push so hard to eat more greens and more carbs. So, even today, I still question, should I be eating more of this or that? And if I dabble with it, I understand what works with my body. But there's not many people on board with it, because the science is young, but also there's not an industry behind paleo to make the margin to put the science out there.
Now, you mentioned your newborn, and congratulations on your newborn. But one thing I wanted to say is that when you have a newborn, you notice when you smell the newborn, the sweet smell, the scent that comes from their body is marvelous. And then when you start giving the baby the processed food and all that chemistry changes in the body. It's no more, sweet smelling baby anymore because of all those chemicals. And I feel that someone needs to write a book about this, how parents, they're such in a rush to get their newborn to eat whole food, so it'll be easy for them when they sit at the table. But this should be a journey. This should be a process of just introducing children, or babies, I should say, to whole natural food. And mothers should get in the habit of making their own food, I feel. All this beautiful, fresh vegetables are out there now, and the farmers markets are just full of produce. I just feel that parents should take advantage of this, and to keep that sweet smelling smell scent from the baby. I think that's a beautiful thing to be a mother now, and to be able to have all this information about paleo available to you, and to incorporate the lifestyle in your newborn children. I think it's marvelous. And I'm very envious of you right now, because I just love the paleo movement, and there's just so much out there to learn. Okay.
Yeah. On the topic of moms, and I've never seen such a motivated group as new moms because, gosh, they'll spend loads of money on organic mattresses, etc., and try to seek out the best things to feed their kids. But again, it goes back to where the advice is coming from. And many pediatricians, for example, are saying, hey, start them on rice, start them on this, that, or the other, when, looking at some research that's not appropriate. With my son, I believe the first food he had was avocado, and then we did soft-boiled eggs and gave him just part of the yolk, and then I did a lot of bone broth cooked with like mashed vegetables, and then of course breast milk mixed into all that. But I never gave him cereal. And again, it's just a lack of information or misinformation coming from health professionals.
Yes, I agree with you, and we're just we're at a fantastic moment, era to learn about the paleo, and I just think that people should, be more informed about it, be educated about it. Yeah. So, let me see. Tell me about the day when you decided to do paleo.
Well, going back to my story of in 2008 when I was at that conference, it was baby steps. It wasn't, I'm jumping feet first. So I was already well on the journey until I understood what paleo was. And I guess it was probably a year and a half later that I was like, okay, let's go squeaky clean and see what differences I see. And my body weight, I didn't lose much weight. I'm not sure if I had a ton to lose, but my body weight shifted quite a bit for the better. And, I stuck with it very long. I mean, again, I just made it a lifestyle. It wasn't like this is black and white paleo life or not. But I didn't obsess about being 100% because I found that when I was doing these strict 30 days and just seeing what happened, it was more of a stressor on, mentally of what foods am I going to prepare, in what social setting can I have a taste of this or that. I stuck with, of course, choosing whole foods. And definitely gluten-free, because once I took gluten out of my diet in 2008, I realized that wasn't worth, trialing back in. So I've been strictly gluten-free for years.
Okay. Well, what was the vision you had for yourself, Kelly, when you started your journey?
I guess I didn't necessarily have a vision. It was all about, I want the best quality of life every day. And with that, it's feeling my best. So my motive is control the blood sugars. And now I have something called a continuous glucose monitor. And I can see what my blood sugar is 24/7 and how foods affect me when I eat them and how much I spike afterwards. And, I'm motivated by what controls my blood sugar the best and keeping a flat line.
When you learned what controlled your blood sugar, how did that make you feel? Empowered. Great.
Yeah,
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a better dietitian too. Food, of course, affects me differently than it affects the next person, but it was just such an educational tool.
That's good to know. Good to know. Now, what were the steps that got you from being a type 1 diabetic to having a passion for nutrition?
These are tough questions. It's like very specific questions, and my answers are quite broad. But going back, so I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old in second grade. None of my siblings, none of my cousins, no one else had diabetes, but my dad did, and my aunt and uncle. So his two brothers, one brother and one sister. So they all had diabetes, and back when they were children with diabetes, the tools to control blood sugar were silly. Of course, they helped people survive, but, not as easily as today. So they were usually just peeing on sticks to tell them if their blood sugar was okay or high. So they didn't have exact measurements to take exact amounts of insulin and so forth. That being said, my dad and his sister both ended up having to have dual transplants. Wow. So they both had a kidney and pancreas transplant because their kidneys started to fail. And you don't get on that list just because you have to. So I saw them very sick. I remember when my dad was on a dialysis diet. Fortunately, the day he had a dialysis appointment was the day he got called for a transplant. But his diet was ridiculous. It was like, watching the magnesium, potassium, and sodium and so forth. And I really was like, wow, food is powerful.
Yeah.
So I didn't jump into nutrition for me. I jumped into it for a passion for my dad. And having the ability to really people.
Okay. Now there's an emotion in your voice right now. How did your dad feel about all this?
About me becoming a dietitian?
Yes.
So initially I thought I wanted to be an endocrinologist, and he's very level-headed and a very good realist. And he was like, I don't know if that's the best move for you. I think it's a great area. He's like, I just don't know if you'll be spread too thin with this disease and being an endocrinologist and having, to be so slammed with hours and so forth. So he kind of guided me, but encouraged me at the same time and helped me unveil that nutrition is a better path for me, which I'm glad, because with nutrition, I feel like there's a lot more creativity. And obviously I've gotten myself in this niche where there's not many dietitians to really support the diet. So I feel like, maybe in a decade, it's going to be such a different story, but I'm happy to be one of the people leading the way.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for leading the way. And also I give cheers to your father for giving you such great advice. Yeah. It's so wonderful to have a father that gives you advice and that you can carry on and make sense. So thank you, Dad. Yeah. Now, how do you measure your success in your diet right now?
Gosh, again, my motivator, my core is all about diabetes control and lack of other secondary diseases from diabetes, such as, retinopathy or neuropathy, kidney disease, yada, yada. So I would say my labs. So having clean, good labs is a measure. And then, of course, my daily glucose levels, as well as my average A1C, which my last A1C was a 5.4. So I'm happy with that. I think B gradient went a little lower in the 5s, but I would say that's my big picture measurement of success. Now, and then, of course, how I feel.
Now, A1C, a lot of our listeners do not understand what A1C is. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so it's a measure of your average glucose reading over about 3 months. And you want it, I believe, the optimal range, it depends what lab you're at, it's like 4.5 to 6. If you're above a 5.5, that's borderline diabetes. If, say, someone went in and got a lab done and didn't have a history. Don't quote me, though, but these are kind of ballpark ranges. But as a type 1 diabetic with a 5.4, that's pretty darn good.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. Thank you for sharing that information. You seem so confident right now. Were you always that way, Kelly?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm definitely an extrovert. And I educate myself daily. I drowned myself in the ancestral research and nutrition research, period. I right now have 3 books on my Kindle with a newborn, and I'm constantly reading or listening to podcasts just because I can never get enough. So I think the confidence stems from all the background and education that I swallow whole. But yeah, I think the confidence is more happiness and passion because I love what I do. Again, I have a 10-day-old, and here I am having an interview with you, and I'm doing it because I'm passionate about the topic, and I just want to keep spreading the word. So I think that's where the confidence comes from.
Wow, that's great. I like that. It reminds me of the old adage that life is not a dress rehearsal, and it just reminds me that that you can't put off what is truly important to you, and your health and the welfare of your family is important to you. And every June the 19th, when I celebrate my birthday, I stop focusing on my upcoming age and start meditating on the exact moment of that day and focus on how I can make it better. And I want to continue to take care of my body like you and focus on healthy eating, also like you, habits. So I want to continue to give current advice, like you said, always reading about new things and new nutrition ideas and tips, and about the paleo lifestyle and how to help others like you do in need to stay and keep healthy. So I like you, I want to teach people to discover what matters most and make June the 19th, which is my birthday, a true reflection on the ideas and beliefs of the paleo lifestyle. And also, how the paleo lifestyle can be help people that are struggling with, diabetes. Because, you're cutting out all the processed food, and all processed food contains inflammation, and inflammation is why a lot of people are diabetic.
All disease begins in the gut, is one thing, and all disease starts with inflammation. So if we remove inflammation and nurture a healthy gut, we're onto a good path.
Okay. Now, where can our listeners go to learn more about you?
Yeah, my business is called Paleo Infused Nutrition. They can go to paleoinfusednutrition.com. I can also be found on Instagram at Kelly O. Schmidt, or on Twitter, that's Kelly OC, and then Facebook, /paleoinfused.com. And I actually just published a book last month, end of May, called What's the Deal with the Primal Eating and the Paleo Diet, which can be found on Amazon, which has a chock full of information, including recipes, shopping lists, and so forth.
Can you share one of the recipes?
From
the book? Yeah.
Do you want me to verbalize it now?
Yes.
So I actually had it this morning for breakfast.
Great.
And that's my paleo-infused pancake. And there's a lot of paleo pancakes out there, and the most simple one is just a half a banana or small banana and 2 to 3 eggs, and you blend that up and turn it into 2 pancakes.
Okay.
So you make it into a batter, and you just pour it into a skillet like normal batter and make pancakes. But I take it a step further, and I take 3 eggs, half a banana, and I do about a nice handful of spinach. I also add some ginger and cinnamon, and I put it in a food processor, so it's very, very well blended. And then I turn that into a pancake. So I have a little bit of vegetable with my breakfast, and of course, some healthy spices to help with inflammation and, just nutrition. And then the cinnamon helps with blood sugar sensitivity.
Wow.
Sensitivity.
That sounds delicious, and all my favorite spices, and I love bananas. And I love pancakes, so I'm going to have to try that. Thank you for sharing that with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I usually put a nice heap of grass-fed butter on top.
Oh, grass-fed butter, my favorite. Yes. Yeah. Yes. For those who haven't tried grass-fed butter, they should try it. It's a great topping to pancakes. You agree?
I consider myself a butter snob. So.
Okay. Thank you for all this information, Kelly. It's been fantastic talking to you. You're a very well-educated person, and I just wish you the best of success in your new book.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of your venue and your outlet, and I look forward to connecting in the future.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.